Now, I wish I had a better image to show you how Lupin was drawn during that time. The whole animation team of Star of the Giants, an epic baseball manga, produced Lupin III. So, here, Otsuka had to struggle so much to have things done properly. Maybe I'll have the image right here. Otsuka had such a difficult time. Because the animators had been drawing baseball players until recently, they drew everyone with good postures. So Otsuka had to instruct them how he needed to stand. Lupin was supposed to stand leaning on one foot, like diagonally. Without his instructions, Lupin always ended up standing like an athlete. Otsuka was like, no, make him look softer like a jellyfish. When he sits, he doesn't sit straight. Make him slack every single time. He explained that over and over to the animators. So it was a lot of work, but finally Lupin III started on TV. But like I said, fun animes used to receive a 40% viewing rate. Even boring animes at least earn 20%. Now guess the number of Lupin's first episode. 9%, which dropped and dropped every episode until it was 6%. The advertising agency complained first, although they said earlier, let's make anime new for adults. Next, Asada Ame saw it as well, and they complained too. So they called Osumi to hold a response meeting. But director Osumi argued back, what's happening is exactly what we have expected. This anime is for adults, and adults don't watch anime. And 9%? A good number. But neither the sponsor or the broadcaster nodded their heads. Osumi got upset, and he stopped coming to meetings after. So Lupin pretty much lost their director around the 6th or 7th episode. Then, the people who caught Fujioka's attention were Miyazaki and Takahata. In addition to the commercial depression of Lupin, because the anime adaptation Pippi Longstocking was rejected, Tokyo Movie was almost going bankrupt. They spent 3 years producing Lupin III, but it received only a 6% viewing rate. Not only that, a feature anime film, Pippi Longstockings, was rejected by the author. They didn't know what to do now, but they had to do something, so they forced Takahata and Miyazaki to support the first season of Lupin III. But in my opinion, I think they are historically the worst two to help improve the viewing rate. But they're both serious and hardworking, so they did what they could. Miyazaki tried to completely remodel Lupin III. To do that, he got rid of the setting that Lupin was a French aristocrat. He replaced the setting that he was a bored rich man who stole for a hobby. Now, he was a poor Italian man who always goggled his eyes, looking for fun. It was a drastic change from French aristocrat to poor Italian man. Now, the car Lupin drove during that time, in the first season, it's a car called Mercedes-Benz SSK. Mercedes-Benz SSK is super expensive today. And it was super expensive back then. Because I think they've only made 30 of them in the world, on top of them being limited in number. SSK has a 12-cylinder piston engine that Ferrari installs. Including that engine, one SSK costs about 14 million US dollars. And that's his car? No way! You see, Lupin has indulged in luxury throughout his life, so he's bored of it. He's fed up with luxury and just wants a car that moves. Miyazaki said, "Oh, that looks good," and pointed at Otsuka's cherished car, Fiat 500, outside the window and said, "How about that car? That looks cheap and beaten up." Otsuka said, "That's my car." Anyway, so Fiat became Lupin's car. So, in the 16th episode of the first season of Lupin, called Operation Jewelry Snatch, there's a scene where Lupin steals Fujiko's car and drives away. After that, it becomes his car. So you may think Fiat became his car from Cagliostro, but it was his car ever since Miyazaki joined the TV series in 1971 and brought in his own setting. In Miyazaki's mind, making the main character of anime drink expensive champagne and drive an expensive car that is super limited in number was so out of fashion. So, rather, he wanted Lupin to drive an ordinary car and be hungry for thrills, so the style shifted. I think the first season is strangely appealing because it's a good mixture of Lupin as an aristocrat as well as a poor and hungry man. Miyazaki was also unhappy about Lupin's gun, Walther P38, that the German military mass-produced millions of. He complained, "What kind of an aristocrat uses a cheap, mass-produced gun like that? I thought Lupin was a Frenchman. How dare he use Walther P38?" He also attacked how shallow the characters were. Osumi originally said his concept received inspiration from Tom and Jerry. You know, it's an anime series where Jerry the mouse runs away and Tom the cat gets mad and chases Jerry. Just like that, Lupin runs away and Zenigata gets mad and chases him. It's a comedy. But Miyazaki hated that idea. He said, "Why make another cliche anime? How are we gonna make many series out of it? Lupin is not a single 5 minutes anime. How can Takahata and I have passion for Tom and Jerry?" It was not when he made Cagliostro, but already back in 1971, Miyazaki strongly insisted that in order for the characters of Lupin to develop, it needed to be more than just playing tag. During that time, Miyazaki also clearly stated that Lupin had only been good as a manga when it had been published in 1968. Therefore, there was no place for him in 1971. He even wrote it on the project proposal. Now, after Heidi, he worked on 3,000 Leagues in Search of Mother. Sorry, this is taking long. It's already past 40 minutes, but let me continue. Unless I talk about Cagliostro, I don't think I can move on to the paid part. So, after Heidi, Girl of the Alps, and 3,000 Leagues in Search of Mother ended, he started questioning his stance as an animator. Ever since he was making The Great Adventure of Horace, his role was to submit storyboards, which Takahata accepted. That's what Miyazaki always did. No matter what he did, when he thought something was interesting, he drew them, one after another, with his enormous drawing ability. When directors saw them, they couldn't refuse them. Then those new drawings changed the plot and the story became Miyazaki's. That was his strategy since he was a newbie. But for Heidi and 3,000 Leagues, he couldn't do that for the first time. All he could do was to serve Takahata. Until then, Miyazaki could flip Takahata's original ideas with his storyboards. Then Takahata was like, "Oh, that's cool, let's use it." But because Takahata was a director who was so loyal to original stories and Heidi and 3,000 Leagues had original stories, he didn't compromise to the suggestions for a change. Although Miyazaki worked so hard, he was just working as a tool to visualize and elaborate Takahata's ideas, nothing more. It was in a way ideal for Miyazaki, who admired Takahata, but he could no longer do things as he wanted. I understand how he felt. I didn't want to be the representative at the Japan Sci-Fi Convention. I hated being like a leader of a committee. I rather wanted to be the second or third important figure who would suggest but does not decide. I later heard a Gainax anime producer, Taka Miyakai, also liked that position when we worked together. So did current Gainax CEO, Yamaga. Which makes it everyone. Creators love being under CEOs and representatives so that they can complain as much as they want. If their ideas get accepted, great. If not, just complain more. Miyazaki too was in that position. But Takahata finally learned how to manage Miyazaki's talent. He handled Miyazaki so well when he produced 3,000 Leagues and Heidi.